Speaking about Shakespeare's literary work, we should say that he was one of the greatest titans of the Renaissance. He was one of the giants of the time, and he was phenomenally prolific. Prolific means that in his lifetime he managed to create an enormous number of works. All in all, William Shakespeare wrote 37 plays belonging to different dramatic genres, 154 sonnets, and two longer poems called narrative poems that we have already mentioned. That's Venus and Adonis and Lucrece. His plays belong to different dramatic genres such as comedies, tragedies, historical plays, and tragicomedies, which are a combination of tragedies and comedies, obviously. Shakespeare's literary work is usually divided into three periods that you can see on the screen. The first period is called optimistic for convenience. As you can see, this word is in quotation marks. That's because it's not a real term, but it's very convenient to use because it sums up perfectly the atmosphere of this time. And in this period, Shakespeare created comedies, historical plays, and sonnets mostly. In the second period, the pessimistic one, he focused on tragedies. He also created several comedies, but they were very different from the first period comedies, and they are sometimes called dark or black comedies. And in the third period, the Romantic period, Shakespeare mostly focused on tragic comedies. So now I would like us to analyze each period in more detail, and let's start with the first one, please. So the first period is marked by Shakespeare's youthful optimism and great imagination and extravagance of language. In these years, Shakespeare created a brilliant cycle of comedies. All of them were written in his playful manner, and typically, the characters of these comedies come into conflict with unfavorable circumstances or wicked people, but they are very witty and smart people, and their love and friendship and faithfulness always take the upper hand. Usually there are no serious problems in those comedies, and those characters can easily overcome any obstacles to reach their happiness. Shakespeare's main aim in creating those comedies was to take the spectator away from everyday troubles and from routine life, and to entertain the people for a bit, because the characters of those comedies typically lived for merriment, pleasure, and love. You can see some of Shakespeare's best-known comedies on the screen. I'm sure you've heard of some of them, at least. For example, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Сон в летнюю ночь, The Taming of the Shrew, Укрощение строптивой, Much Ado About Nothing, Много шума из ничего, As You Like It, Как вам это понравится, and some others. But now I would like to focus on Twelfth Night. Twelfth Night is one of the most charming and perfect of Shakespeare's plays, and also it was the last of his merry comedies. Afterwards, he mainly switched to tragedies. The title might seem a bit unclear. The thing is that the play was written to say goodbye to the Christmas holidays, which had been celebrated for 12 days with great pomp. So the 12th night is the end of this holiday and celebration and the end of merrymaking. That's where the title comes from. The plot of the play is centered around Viola. You can see the names of the characters in the screen. Viola is a clever, intelligent, and noble-hearted woman. She comes from a wealthy aristocratic family, and when the drama starts, we can see her making a sea voyage with her twin brother Sebastian. But their ship is but they are shipwrecked, and Viola finds herself on the coast of Illyria, an imagined country, invented country that does not exist in real life. Viola is rescued by the captain of the ship, actually, and brought to the coast of Illyria. And Sebastian is nowhere to be seen, so everybody believes that he has drowned in the catastrophe. And Viola realizes that she has to establish her life in some way. She has to start from scratch, so she asks the captain for some details about the country that she's in, and the captain tells her that Illyria is ruled by a man called Duke Orsino, and Duke Orsino is in love with Countess Olivia, an aristocrat from this country. He also tells Viola that Countess Olivia has gone through a personal drama recently. Her brother and her father died, and because of that, Countess Olivia is grieving, so she does not admit anyone into her house. She does not go out, and she doesn't want to let anyone in. As Viola has to think of some way to live from this moment on, she decides to become a servant to Countess Olivia, but Countess Olivia does not let her in, and just like anybody else, so Viola has to go. And after that, she changes her mind and wants to serve Duke Orsino instead. But she can't do that as a girl, so she finds some of her brother's clothes and puts them on and pretends to be a boy called Cesario. So Cesario is the name that she takes, pretending to be a boy. The Duke likes Cesario, so he hires him gladly to be his servant. And actually, Cesario is a very smart young man, so the Duke likes him a lot and starts to confide in him very quickly. So the Duke tells him all about his feelings for Countess Olivia and asks Cesario to go to her house to talk to Olivia about Duke's feelings. Viola has no choice because that's an order, but she is really reluctant to do that because she has fallen in love with Duke Orsino already. But when Viola, as dressed as Cesario, comes to Countess Olivia, Olivia falls in love with him, and she declares her love for Cesario all at once. So Viola finds herself in quite an awkward situation, and she has to get out of it without hurting Olivia's feelings. So she says something about Cesario's resolution never to love any woman and makes her leave. In the meantime, Sebastian has rescued himself, but he needs help, so he turns for help into the first house that he can see, and that happens to be Countess Olivia's house. Sebastian is admitted by Countess Olivia, but Olivia thinks that it's Cesario who has come back because Viola and Sebastian are identical twins. They look exactly the same. So Olivia once again declares her love for Cesario and even proposes that they should get married, to which Sebastian agrees for some reason. But at this moment, Cesario, Viola, enters again, and soon the misunderstanding is cleared up. So everybody realizes that Viola and Sebastian look exactly the same, that they are twins, that there are two of them, and everybody makes fun of Olivia for falling in love with a girl, actually. And then Duke Orsino comes in and he sees Viola and he realizes that his loyal and reliable servant and smart servant turns out to be a very attractive young girl as well. So he proposes marriage to Viola, and Viola readily agrees to that. So the twin brother and sister have their weddings on the same day, and Viola becomes the wife of Duke Orsino, the ruler of Illyria, and Sebastian becomes the husband of the rich and noble Countess Olivia, who lives in the same country, and they all live happily ever after. Well, the story seems quite an entertaining one. There are a lot of confusing moments because of the twins, but there are no real serious obstacles that could ruin the happiness of the main characters, as you can see. And one really important thing is the character of Viola. Viola presents the new ideal of a woman typical for the period of the Renaissance as opposed to the Middle Ages. If we take a look at some earlier works, we can see that in the medieval literature, uh, women were mostly portrayed as passive objects of love. So brave knights declared their love for beautiful ladies, and they they took some action to prove their feelings to beautiful ladies, and they fought in honor of beautiful ladies. But ladies didn't really do much, they just kind of accepted all that attention on the part of the knights. But the woman described in the literature of the Renaissance is really different from that, because well, if we take a look at Viola, for example, she does not hesitate to take up the responsibility for her own happiness and her own life, and she does not allow to anyone to control it. And this way, Shakespeare shows us that women have the right to equality and independence, which is a really, well, universally accepted idea nowadays, but was something quite unusual back then.